Webinar, Chapter Recovery Moment. Bienvenidos a nuestro ciclo de seminarios web con expertos, nuestro capítulo Momento de Recuperación y la temática cómo adaptar la oferta hotelera al nuevo escenario. Today we will have a webinar in Spanish with English translations. Hoy tendremos una webinar en español con traducción simultánea al inglés. Quiero agradecer por realizar esta tarea a Mónica y Alfonso, nuestros traductores, quienes nos van a acompañar durante el transcurso de esta webinar.
So I would like to thank Monica and Alfonso who are going to interpret this webinar. Now you can share your explanation on how what can be done to choose the language channel. And here you can see obviously if people are listening to Spanish and want to listen to English, then they follow the instructions.
In English, please follow the instruction that you can see in our picture. Okay? Vamos a darle unos segundos a nuestros traductores.
I'm going to give a second to our translators so people can choose the correct channel. And we can start our webinar immediately. Okay, so now the Spanish channel cannot hear me, that's fine.
The people who speak English, if you can write, please, if everything is okay, we can start. Le he pedido a la gente que está escuchándonos en inglés para que nos indique si está todo perfecto, entonces podemos comenzar nuestra webinar. Muchas gracias. Ok, la presente amenaza.
So the current threat to tourism by COVID-19 has got no precedent in the history. All the international bodies have played a huge role in because they have faced, you know, a huge challenge. Today we have here the Ambassador John Bilford, the Director of the Department of Affiliated Members of the World Tourism Organization since August 2019. A career diplomat, he's also served as Secretary of State and Head of Protocol of the Romanian government. So welcome, John. Today, the main worry in the sector is how to face the reconstruction process. There are many efforts that are centered on the international unification of protocols to provide guarantees and confidence to travelers. So this is why we have here also Mar de Miguel, President of the ISO Committee Working Group, in charge of developing and updating of the World Quality Standard of hotels. A team that is working on the project of international standardization of protocols. Mar is also currently the General Secretary of the Hotel Business Association of Madrid. So thank you both for joining us. Mar, if you allow me, I'm going to start with John. The World Tourism Organization has presented a set of guidelines to help the tourism sector come out of the COVID-19. Guidelines underline the need to act decisively, restore confidence, and take advantage of the innovation and the digital transformation of global tourism. John, what will the United Nations World Travel Organization focus on the coming months? What are they doing?
Skål International,
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank you all, to thank Skål International, Daniela Otero. Let me say that I'm honored to be able to take part in this meeting today, which is very important, and it's referring to one of the sectors that is facing the biggest challenge regarding this COVID disease. I would also like, it's a pleasure being here with Mar also. I would like to stress that the World Tourism Organization acting as a specialized agency depending on the United Nations, we are in the center of the problem right now. From the very beginning, we have focused on leading the global answer. When it comes to dealing with such a crisis, which is completely unprecedented, it is important that between all of us we can find the ways to stop the impact that is bringing this sector to a stop, and at the same time we must act in a coordinated way. Nothing worse than different people acting without coordination. And this is mainly where we have focused our effort. We have tried to measure the impact to see how deep this crisis is. And even if this situation is changing and we still lack information, we have made our first estimations that show a level of damage which is unprecedented. From January to April, compared to 2019, which was a record year, there was a fall of 44% in volume, but then we have focused in using the information that we had. We tried to make projections and see how hard the impact is. And we have prepared 3 different scenarios. And those scenarios were based on the parameter which is the moment when the restriction was released, and in 2020 the fall was 58%, and we see that we are right now in that scenario. So right now we are in the point of evaluating the situation in which we are. The fall has been really hard. The most optimistic projections is a fall of 60%, and the worst is nearly 90%. Everything we have done, we have taken as a certain data that we know the capacity of this sector to overcome the problem. This is something that we are positive about. Since we have this ability, which is checked, what we can do is let both governments and private entities know ways of acting and things that we can do and measures that in a coordinated way we can implement. So I would like to stress something which is really important. It's our concern. The department I'm the head of has been really concerned with what we are recommending to the governments. We must let the private sector also speak out. This is something important. The alliance between the public sector and the private sector is really important. And this is not only because you as a private sector are the first line who are having the contact with the reality. Also, by defining protocols without taking into account the expertise of the private companies, of the private sector, the decisions taken just by the bureaucracy can mean really high costs which are useless. So we must give a coordinated global answer, and we want to hear you, we want to have your input, because to us it is really important. And Skål International who is an affiliate of us, is organizing this meeting today. And we think that this is very important because we are going to receive really important information from all of you. And we will also have the input from the Madrid Hoteliers Association, who's also an affiliate of us. So we are right now here, we are listening what you say, and our effort is to do what it takes so that the governments, so that the authorities can help all of us to overcome this problem in a coordinated way.
I know that you have a meeting, so we're going to stay with you just for a few minutes, but I thought what you said is very important. You know that our organization puts together thousands and thousands of businesses around the world, that the WTO is working both in this sense. It's uniting the public and the private sector. For those that do not know the goals of the World Travel Organizations, they got representation from all the countries that are part of it, that are members. And this is important because such an unexpected crisis and such an unusual crisis, that the coordination of the international politics and the private sectors has been fundamental. And I think it's something that we've learned that is so important. So please tell me from an institutional point of view what the World Travel Organization has been doing, because obviously this has been something new.
As you say, we are the only agency of the United Nations that has this important particularity. We have on the one hand the member states, and also, and this is important, we have affiliated entities. More than 550 entities all over the world, which are business associations, which are maybe hotels, universities, and many other entities. This offers us the privilege to have a link which is really fast and straight with you, because it's you that make up the tourism. And also we are focusing on opportunities. Never before we have been able to see so clearly the advantage of having an organization like the World Tourism Organization. We have created a way, we have a committee where we are listening to the private sector, and the private sector has been sitting in the same table as the governments. We also did two things. On the one hand, we have received the initiative, the different proceedings, the recommendations that you were defining and letting us know, and we have taken them into account. And on the other hand, we have tried to give feedback to our affiliates on what we are doing. And never before we have seen this link. This is something really important. And in these times of crisis, I can let you know that me, as the director of affiliates, I have never felt like this. Like when we started working in April with the recommendations from the governments, and when we could see the feedback that we received from you, and we are convinced, because we are facing a hard crisis, we are convinced that we will still working like this. So congratulations for this. You have been really useful for us, and the recommendations that the World Tourism Organization are doing for the future, the objective is to reconquer the confidence of the tourists, and the alliance between the public and the private sector is paramount. I mean, this is not a matter of thinking how to escape from the crisis just based on the governments, but also based on the input that you give us.
This is very important what you mentioned, because I've got a huge variety of people now listening to us, and in some countries this has been quite difficult to implement for different reasons, culturals, etc. But they are obviously members of the World Trade Organization. So I think the education and training task that the WTO is doing is very important.
I will end up saying that we are not going to impose anything on the member states, but I will say that our recommendations are quite strong and they come from the consensus. So I believe that it's quite important that the World Tourism Organization makes recommendations to the governments. There are differences between what is being implemented in the different countries. So I believe that it is quite important for us to let everyone know, the different government know, the feedback that we receive from the private sector.
Thank you for your time. I know that you have an important meeting scheduled weeks ago, so now we say goodbye and move on with Par and delve into more technical issues. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniela. Thank you, Daniela. Thank you, all of you. Mar, you will have a nice day today with Daniela. And thank you so much.
So much. Thank you for your participation. We all work together, and we've been chatting on different occasions. And this is obviously a very important subject, and it's very important to share it with our public. So we've obviously said that this health crisis is giving way to an urgent recovery stage, and what the hotel is offering is very important. Today, I would like to focus on reconstructions. We have received many inquiries from hoteliers who, in some countries, for instance, South America, are still at the peak of the health crisis. Therefore, could you please comment briefly and as an example how the hotel sector managed the crisis and the state of alarm in Madrid, a city that in 2019 received over 10 million tourists? This is just to give you the other cities an idea.
Thank you. And hello to everyone who's here today. In order to start with this brief explanation, because I think that we will focus on the reconstruction, I will take something that Dion said before, which is a storm. Leonardo da Vinci said, if you focus just in one star, you will be able to cross any storm. We have lived different phases, different stages during this crisis. The first stage, it was at the end of February, beginning of March, when we started seeing that the situation was going to be quite complicated. So we appointed an internal crisis committee. We started having contacts with the governments. So this was before the lockdown, and we had to define which were our priorities, and we wanted to define and let the government know where we thought that they would need to help us. And we also designed different communication channels, both internal and external, because in this unprecedented crisis, the most important key would be communication. Then we went into a second stage, which is the stage of crisis itself. Our focus was communication, the internal communication with our associates. So we created different levels of communication, different channels and different models of communication. Most of them were updated on a daily basis. With the decisions taken by the Spanish government, we were also monitoring how the offer was moving, and we received many questions regarding the closures, regarding legal staff, regarding medical staff, and all of those questions were received and answered during the day. So no question was ever left unanswered, so everybody felt that they were being taken care of. We also created an organism which was dealing with the helps.
Que hables un poquito más pausado para que los traductores puedan seguirte, porque estamos haciendo una traducción simultánea. Gracias.
Disculpa.
No, todo perfecto. Nos pasa siempre lo mismo. Pero así entonces Alfonso y nuestra traductora pueden seguirnos mejor, porque yo creo que pueden respirar, sí, Mónica y Alfonso. Gracias.
Pues disculpas a los traductores. Pero fue una etapa muy intensa de colaboración público-privada.
So we had a really intense stage of cooperation between the public and the private sector, because we offer these medical hospitals that offer 9,000 beds. Also, we prepared hotels in order for the medicals and doctors to live.
This was called, what is called today, medicalized hotels.
Yes, these are the medicalized hotels. On the one hand, we have people with COVID, and on the other hand, we have doctors and people working in the health sector. So we were working as if we were a part of the public administration. And also donations. We donated sommiers, beds, food, cleaning staff, everything that we could give for free, we gave it for free. So at that moment, the main objective it was to deal with this situation.
I think this is a fantastic experience, and everyone that is facing critical situation can take it as an experience.
So, Daniela, and anyone who's listening to us, our organization is here to give answer to any question that you may have. And then we move to the next stage, which is the stage to get ready for the reopening, where we started working on the protocols. We also got involved in the design. So this is an unprecedented situation, and we must redefine the tourist destinations from the point of trust.
We have a question before we go into the conversation speech. Tim Anderson is asking how many hotels or how many rooms were used, hotel rooms were used during the COVID crisis.
13 hotels out of 40. We received 2,500 patients, and for workers, we used 22 hotels. We had hotels on duty because we needed them to work on a certain regularity, because we needed to receive people who were working with transports, and those were 21 hotels.
Another one of the question, the higher amount of domestic violence was being difficult for many families, and domestic violence has increased in many countries. So the question is whether the hotels were also used for this kind of situation, especially in the situation in Spain and in Madrid for domestic violence.
21 hotels were used for domestic abuse.
So we are going to discuss now the central theme, which because obviously there's loads of information about the crisis. So we can say that there is a stronger need to be permanently alert to external factors that might influence the hospitality and tourism sector in general and each business in particular. It is also clear that safety will become one of the customers' demands, safety at all levels. And there is, and especially safety related to health and hygiene, and obviously this is related to the hotel sector. So now, how will be the operational adaptation of hotels, the new protocols and the hygiene measures? I know that you've been working for months on this issue, and obviously this is not an easy issue because there's so many different realities, and I would like to share some ideas with our public.
We realized one day when we had a general meeting in our organization, we saw that different associates were working on different protocols for the reopening. So we understood that we need to unify all of them and have just one only guide for the good practices. So we were moving to COVID-free hotels, but we know that this expression COVID-free can't be. What we will do is minimize the disease, but we cannot have a COVID-free 100% free hotel. So from the Department of Tourism and from the Tourism Quality Organization, they initiated a working group, and we joined them because we thought that there would be just one answer. One rule was, one guide was defined. We thought that this was a good thing to do, which was going to be implemented in the hotels. So in this work group, there were different medical associations, associations of hoteliers, and then this was also agreed with the working unions, because mainly these rules try to minimize they try to protect the workers, and they try to protect the neighbors and the environment and everyone who's surrounding the hotels. Once this guide was finished, the process was initiated in order to recognize it as a issue, as a norm, and now we are going to take it to be recognized as an ISO norm. So in the end, 21 guides were drafted, one for each of the 21 sectors.
Shortly, we're going to share a slide that you sent us, and it's a way that our public can follow what we're saying. I have a few questions, and thank to those that are sending questions. Can you share with us what Spanish citizens had to do so Spain reduced the propagation of COVID? Because other countries can learn from it. I can maybe say that it's not been a success how it was handled. We were all learning, and obviously there are many other things that we can improve, and if we have to go through the situation again, I think governments would make other decisions and would act much more quickly. But there's a common denominator, and that is the citizens' reply to it.
I totally coincide with you. This is a matter of social respect. We must be conscious that we must take care of ourselves and take care of the rest of the people. So we need to implement the norms which are recommended by the health department. I think that is the key.
The next question is how long will the business, the economic curve last? And obviously this has got to do with your sector because obviously hoteliers in Madrid are dealing with this question. What is your opinion about it?
Yes, like you said, we had 10 million tourists in the area. We were foreseeing this to be a great year because Madrid is a destination that has a high potential because of the offer, both cultural offer and also because of the gastronomy and everything that we have. Right now, we believe that in order to achieve the same figures, at least 1 year must lapse. We are now focusing on the beginning of September, the end of this year, the month of December, because there's a long weekend. And from that moment, we believe that we will start the recovery. But this economic crisis, we must be aware that it comes from a health crisis. So this is something unprecedented. The situation is changing fast, and it's not based on economic factors, but it's based on health factors. So we hope that there will be no reinfections, and this will help us recover during the year 2021. And by the end of next year, we will be at the same point. But this will depend on a vaccination being discovered soon, or maybe this will take some time.
As John mentioned, we got to do a different recovery curves, and there is the recommendation that has got to be given to people that are asking about this subject because there isn't a definite scenario. Another question, and obviously about confidence. Without confidence, there's no tourism. Will the mask, which gives confidence, be enough? Obviously, and can you replace the sanitary passports? And many people are against the sanitary passports. And sanitary passport can be easy, but the situation can be changed so quickly. So we have to follow, obviously, the World Tourism Organization recommendation. And it's not something they have recommended. And obviously the mask generates less lack of confidence, but obviously the hotels have to make sure that everyone feels confident.
Yes, of course. And clients expect this safety. I believe that right now, any measure that is being implemented in the hotels leads to the safety of our clients, and our clients are welcoming these measures. Something different would not be valued, and it would not be the right thing to do. So regarding the use of masks in Madrid, everybody walking in Madrid will wear the mask. Well, not everybody, there's always exceptions, but people is using them on a regular basis, and people coming from outside, they have valued this as something quite positive because it is a sign of respect.
Of course, we've got the same perception here in the south of Spain. So in this context that we're talking about, there are two words that are raising. One is flexibility and the other one is agility. So there are two fundamental characteristics. What we have learned during these difficult months is that this big crisis always generates new scenarios where there is uncertainty, but also opportunities. This is something that we mentioned. So when reopening hotels, um, the key would be to adapt to new priorities demanded by both internal and external clients. And what I mentioned is that technology will play a determining role because the current situation has forced us to accelerate the times in digitalization and in other areas of our daily lives. So what will be the technology that hoteliers will think that will be necessary as sine qua non to be able to open and be safe?
What we see is that both the technology as the digital transformation are our allies in order to reactivate the activity and in order to give confidence to the clients. If we knew that this was important, now we know that it is, we cannot do it without it. Maybe what we will need to look for now is some balance, because we are also characterized by that human touch. And even if technology is important, still people want to be taken care of by other people. So I believe that we must make these two things live together, which is technology and the human touch. Also, from my point of view, we must learn on cybersecurity, cyber management, and the staff must receive training.
And for instance, for listener of other countries, what is being planned? What's the experience of clients that are going to a hotel in Madrid? What are you implementing? For instance, I've heard an automated check-in and check-out without human intervention. I heard about limitations in the use of lifts. I have heard about changes in the food service, breakfast. What other changes will the clients find?
Well, everything you said is already being implemented. The internal communication is quite important towards the staff and towards the clients. Now, having the same infrastructure, we are using it in a different way. So that's why it is important to have this guide, because it highlights the importance of communication. When it comes to checking, we have also been working with another group at a national level, because obviously we must identify the client, but we are trying to reduce this to a minimum so that there is no contact. The individual doses also when it comes to breakfast, or having people serving the food and not being the client who can come to the food. Also implementing washing your hands before entering and when leaving the premises. These are things which are important, but also reconfiguration of the different spaces. We must redefine the use of the different spaces. Also, Also, we must limit the capacity of the spaces, and this is something that we will need to do for a long time. So basically, also the amount of fabric within the rooms have been reduced. For example, many aspects which are having an impact on swimming pools and spas. So we have reviewed everything in full detail in order to have the guarantees.
And do you forecast any changes in the consumers' habits and value proposals? The priorities will, as we know them, will not only change in order, there will be new ones. If we talk about the branding evolution in the new scenario, many people are already saying that hotels should include safety as a differentiating value within the brand's reputation of the hotel, in the same way that in recent years we included sustainability. So safety and sustainability as a key of the marketing and promotion of hotels. This is a very passionate subject, and obviously we got many questions regarding this, because for many people the sustainability issue was already within their values, but obviously safety is something new. So what's your opinion on that you're working on this new recommendation?
Well, our opinion is that sustainability is the bet that we must do. So sustainability is the way, and maybe different measures that we have to implement in order to prevent the COVID, these monodoses go against sustainability, but this is something temporary. We are still making our bet towards sustainability. This is something that cannot be stopped on the long term, and clients, offering sustainability and safety to the clients will be the clue and the key.
Specialists on the environment, the advisors on the sector said that we got to balance sustainability and safety. So there's going to be a few months or maybe 1 year where the products and the new sustainability norms will have to be more flexible, because we got to find a new balance. So we got to maybe go down one step to be able to go up again, and this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, right now we must take a step back in order to move forward.
Our director asks us that some companies are applying artificial intelligence in hotels in the United States and Asia. So what's the situation and the focus here in Europe, and what are the repercussions, do you think, in the future for the employment in hotels? Because obviously it's been one of the sectors that has been most affected together with airlines.
When it comes to artificial intelligence, I guess that this is applied to the client, applied to the evolution of the demand from the clients. What happens is that AI acts using patterns from the past, and suddenly we have this crisis which is unprecedented. So I believe that in this sense we need to analyze in further detail in order to see which algorithms are being used.
If you allow me, I've seen that many tendencies, many trends in the Asian hotels, the little robots that go around the hallways in hotels and replace the human contact. And this is a technological innovation that was implemented before the crisis. So now it's a question of using this new technology in the future.
Yes, but always looking for this balance between the human touch and the automation, because we want to offer a sustainable and quality product, so we must never forget the human touch. And from the sector in Spain, from the very beginning, we made a demand to the government, which is to make this employment regulation law to be flexible, so that this could be kept after the lockdown is finished. To date, as you know, this has been approved until August the 30th, but we are still working and trying to push so that they keep this until the end of December, which this means that we are fighting so that the impact on the staff, on the employment, is the minimum.
And obviously the posture of Spain and in the rest of the European countries, there are many places where the government didn't have the same attitude towards this problem. So if it's okay with you, before we go on, because I got many questions, so thank you for them. So we're talking about confidence, which is the fundamental, the key word to start tourism again. Without confidence, people have fears, so they will not travel that much, or in a very reduced way, just in their surrounding area, regional or local area. So to achieve this confidence, we obviously discussed it with you many times about the necessity to implement internationally approved protocols, because something that happened at the beginning of this crisis is that there was an interesting proposal for protocols, but it was very local. It was about tourist town, provinces, and or maybe countries. But now this discussion, the fundamental need to start again long journeys, is that these protocols must be on an international level. So the same safety that tourists will find in or feel in the States, they will feel it in Europe and Asia. That's why this project is so interesting, I would say even pioneering. A project that is pushing forward an international protocol with ISO standard, which will cover all the sectors. And I would like to ask our technicians to maybe show these slides that we prepared, to share them with our public, which is the process of what has been done. And obviously, the technology and the trends is something that was coming already. So please go to the next slide. This is the Space Twin certified seal, and it's something that I would like you to discuss. Obviously, this is a local one, but that has been used as a platform to create an international program. Is that correct?
Yes, that's it. This seal has been the result of those 21 guides that I told you that we did, one for each sector. We started with the hoteliers, but then we also went for rural lodge, resorts, golf courses, and so on. So in the end, it finished in the seal. This is a national seal, as you can see in item number 6. It was first turned into a national norm, and in order to obtain this seal, each of the hotels, each of the private companies needed to do an audit, and you must use one of the 7 auditing companies. The cost will depend on the size of the hotel, and then after this audit and after implementing everything that has been detected that you needed to implement, so when everything is correct, then they will issue this seal that you will receive by the Quality in Tourism Organization of Spain.
So that's the certification is number 6 of the process that we see here. When somebody has this certification, what's the next step to get this ISO standard? How long does it take? Will it be compulsory, or will it decide what to do?
Daniela, like any other standard of quality, it is voluntary unless the government says different. This is something that you choose to take in order to come closer to the quality. From the month of July, the ISO committee had a meeting, and the international work group that we lead was presented. We presented the Spanish standard with the objective so that they start working on this Spanish standard in order to draft the European or the international standard. Right now, this situation is quite strange. So I believe that we will work on a much faster pace, because generally speaking, when it comes to a general situation, an ISO standard takes up to 3 years, but we cannot afford those 3 years now. Exactly the same as on a national basis, we have drafted those 21 guides in 1 month, 1.5 months. We expect this to happen the same for the international standard.
Let's go to the next slide for the people that are following us on the English channel. Talk about transversal certification, which covers 21 sectors. So all these 21 subsectors are included in this new ISO protocol on an international level. So travel agency, hostels, rural accommodation, spa, campings, golf course, protected spaces, travel guides, hotels, nautical installations, museums, nightlife, tourist information, attraction parks, beaches, restorations, and restaurants, and obviously transports, tourism, active tourism, ecotourism, MICE tourism, and tourist sightseeing. So there are 21 subsectors in the tourist area. Should be, hopefully, also have the possibility within the end of the year, hopefully, to have the ISO guarantee, the ISO standard. And this is so important to have Marta here with us today, because obviously today she is the representative of the hotel sector to be able to unify these 21 subsectors in the world to be able to all work together under this quality control standard. This is the only way for tourists to gain the confidence that you had before the pandemic. Is that correct?
You are right. We understand that this is the only way to recover confidence. each one of us from our different subsectors, from our companies, this is the only way to recover the confidence.
Those that are listening to us and are interested in getting the training on how to get certified with this norm, how can they contact your team and join the international norms?
Well, first of all, I would recommend them to read the different guides as they are at the moment on the Spanish Ministry of Industry and Tourism, because when the ISO standard is drafted, everything changes a little bit, but the essence that has been used to develop all of those protocols will be the same. And it will remain. So in order to start with this, they can start reading this information, and once this ISO standard is approved, then we will make it public on all of the different channels. And
will also be a channel for our affiliates, for our members. So now we're approaching the conclusion, but I would like to maybe ask a few more questions so that everyone can have an answer to their questions. So Susanna was talking about the change in the mentality and in the mentality and lifestyles. We talked about sustainability, which is going to increase in the future. We think it will be the case. There's going to be a difficult adaptation period, but it's going to be the case. Juan Carlos is asking us whether about family and independent hotels, and the question is whether maybe they will be able to keep on going, because and this is an interesting person, because the businesses that first reaction to it are actually family businesses. So what is your recommendation and what happened to you?
This is a very important question, because 50% of members of our organization are family-owned hotels. So we have seen during these times of crisis and during the different crises, the different stages, they have depended on our organization, and they have taken actively a role. They are right now informed exactly the same as the biggest chains. Maybe they have reinvented the roles that the different organizations play, and our objective was to have the internal communication going on a continuous basis. And there was so much information at the very beginning. During the first 4 to 6 weeks, there was too much information. So what we were doing was filtering that information so that it was easier for them to receive and get to know everything.
I totally agree with you that associations show their value increase, because this is a time to be united and filter the information to obtain true and valid information, and to concentrate the information and make good decisions. Jose Giampietro is asking whether they can ask for a change of use, so the accommodation category, so change hotels in other type of accommodation. So will this issue be more flexible? So not big, but small places.
Well, at the moment, we are not considering this. Right now, our objective is to reactivate the activity, to recover the confidence, and the trust of the client. And right now, we are not even thinking on this change of use. I believe that once everything is reactivated, maybe these changes will happen on a natural way, maybe based on the change of the decisions made by the clients.
And in the last question, which is what we always get asked in these webinars, and it's like about a Christmas ball. So the hotelier that is asking, the recovery will start after September or December? We're talking about bridge, which is a long weekend in Spain. So what's the feeling, the sensation of this is going to develop the hotel business?
This question is quite logic, and this will depend on what happens from the point of view of the health, and it will also depend on other factors, like, for example, connectivity. And for us, it is really important to recover this connectivity. Right now, Barajas, the Madrid airport, is 40% of capacity, so the recovery will also be linked to having good health figures, and also it will depend on recovering the connectivity. It will also depend on the product that you offer. We are affixing the month of September. We are focused on the month of September because most of our offer is during the month, during the summertime. But right now we will need an offer of open spaces, not that urban offer.
And just to finish it off, I would like to mention that from the World Trade Organizations, you are dealing with the governments to open borders, and that's the first step on a political level against to the health level. And also the second issue is about connectivity. Next week, we're probably going to have a webinar with IATA, which are trying to look into the implementation, not just of protocols, which is very advanced, but to open the international routes. And they're evaluating when this can happen. And the third point is the complementary offer, because obviously it's very linked to this first two, because obviously we can't talk about hotels without talking about opening the borders. Then obviously it's a huge limitation and it's just limited to a regional or local context where people can just drive there by car, and it's like a little bubble within your own country.
This is what we are living right now. The demand that we are receiving are national tourists, and we understand that at a later stage the recovery will come. The main client that we receive from abroad in Madrid is tourists from the United States. So once the connectivity is reactivated, we will start receiving them. And until that moment comes, it is quite important to help the different economic sectors, in this case the hoteliers, to manage their costs. Because everything that is paying fees, mortgages, rents, everything, we must help them in order to try to prevent from the destruction of the different staff and things, because hotels may have closed, but hoteliers have been working, they have been helping, and they have been giving 100%, and they have been working from a different point of view, but harder than ever.
Bueno, yo quiero agradecerte muchísimo la presencia, el haber compartido esta experiencia para nuestros...
Thank you so much for sharing your experience and sharing it with our public. If anyone has got any other question or wants more information, please get in touch with us, and we'll pass it on to John, Vico, and Magda Miguel from the Business Association of Hotels in Madrid. And they can maybe explain a little bit more about the ISO standards. So thank you very much, Bar. We all need to be positive because we are on the right path. So thank you for being with us today, and thank you from all of us.
Y gracias a ustedes que nos están acompañando. Estaremos próximamente ya comunicándonos la
So thank you for thank you all for being with us, and we'll let you know about the date of our next meeting. Thank you.